Welcome to the Video Professor's series of computer learning tapes, the nation's #1 computer trainer. We'll take you step by step through learning to use your computer software. On the screen now are some other tapes available in our series. When using these tapes, we suggest you watch them in their entirety. Then go back with your computer and practice each step. In keeping with the Video Professor's dedication to giving you the best lesson possible, we have packed these tapes with information and sometimes move at a pace that is faster than you will be able to follow along with as you are working with your computer. Remember, you can always pause or rewind the tape to learn each part. Now let's get started. And welcome to my tape on Quicken 3.0 for Windows. Quicken looks and works just like your personal checkbook, all with the convenience and speed of an electronic spreadsheet. It makes forecasting your finances, balancing your budget, reconciling bank statements, and many other personal finance chores easier than ever. With this version of Quicken, you'll get all the advantages of the Windows environment. You can have several different programs open and running in Windows. Quicken can interact with these other programs and share information. For example, you can take numbers or graphs from Quicken and combine them with text from a word processing program to create a well-balanced, professional-looking document, all without a lot of complicated file exchange procedures or stopping and starting programs. Because Quicken works within the Windows environment, it is important that you understand how Windows works. If you don't, I suggest you see my tape Learning Windows before starting this lesson. I also assume you have a basic understanding of DOS for this lesson. If you need a review, please see my tape Getting Started with Your Personal Computer. I will review some Windows and DOS concepts in this tape and show everything we do. So even if you haven't seen these tapes, you will still be able to follow along. Before going any further, I'd like to introduce Suzanne, my student helper for this lesson. Simply follow along with her and you'll be using this program in no time. In this lesson, we will cover basic Quicken skills, such as creating accounts and categories, entering and editing checks and deposits, printing checks, and reconciling your bank statement. Although this tape is intended for people who are new to Quicken, it will also be useful to veteran Quicken users who are upgrading. Later in this lesson, we'll save lesson files to disk. Suzanne and I will save to a floppy disk to avoid cluttering up the hard drive. I suggest that you too have an empty formatted diskette on hand to save your Video Professor results too. And to get those results, you'll need a mouse and keyboard for this lesson. Keyboard use is necessary to input new data into Quicken spreadsheets. However, you need a mouse to access the icons on the icon bar and many other Quicken shortcuts. The commands given in this lesson will be a mixture of mouse and keyboard commands. To effectively follow my instructions, you should have both. The mouse commands will be for a 2-button mouse. The commands given are the ones I believe to be quicker or more appropriate for a given situation. As you gain experience with Quicken, you will develop your own preferences. If Quicken for Windows version 3.0 is already installed on your computer, you're ready to go. But if it isn't, you'll need to take a few minutes to complete that task. This is also a good time to review the system requirements for this software. Obviously, to install Quicken for Windows, you must already have Windows installed on your computer. But there are other requirements that must be met. These are listed on screen for you now. Take a moment to read them. Some virus protection programs interfere with installation, so you should turn off any virus protection that may be running on your computer. Viewers, before installing Quicken, it is a good idea to make copies of the original master disks. Once copied, use those copies to do the installation. This will eliminate potential damage to your masters during the installation process due to floppy or hard drive malfunctions. To install Quicken for Windows, the Windows program must be open and its Program Manager window active. It is also a good idea to close all other programs at this time to give you more memory for installation and operation of Quicken. With that said, place your Quicken install disk #1 into Drive A. Suzanne, use your mouse to pull down the File menu on the Windows menu bar. Once done, click on the Run option. Keyboard users, press your Alt and F keys together for File and then R for Run. In the File Run dialog box that appears on screen, type A:"Install" on the command line. Once done, press the Enter key or click on the OK button to begin this installation. The first screen allows you to choose either an express or custom installation. An express installation will do all the work for you, including directory selection. If you would rather choose the directory program group name, and when or if you want the bill minder to show up, use the options in the lower left screen to do so. If you're unsure of the options, use the express installation. You can easily make changes later when you know more about the program. In any case, click the Install button to start installation and then change the disk as needed. If you are using an earlier version of Quicken, the installation process should find your data files on the hard drive and will ask if you want to move them to the new directory. Click Move or Don't Move according to your preference. Data files from the earlier Quicken for Windows or DOS Quicken versions 5, 6, or 7 are fully compatible with this new version. The files are not changed and can also be read by those earlier versions even after they've been used with this new version. Files from DOS Quicken 3 or 4 can be read and used by this version, but they will be updated so that they cannot be used on the older DOS versions. When the installation process is completed, you are returned to the Windows Program Manager, where you will find a Quicken 3.0 for Windows window open among the program groups. Click on OK to close the dialog box that appears on screen. Viewers who already have Quicken installed should have Windows running and the Quicken group window open in Program Manager as it is on our screen. Everyone double-click on the Quicken program icon to launch the program. Keyboard users, be sure the Quicken icon is selected, then press the Enter key. If you've just installed Quicken and have never used an earlier version, your first-time startup will trigger some special events to help newcomers get started with the program. Click on the No button or press your N key to cancel out of the next two warning boxes. Then select the Cancel button when the first-time setup dialog box appears. Now you new users should have a plain, empty Quicken window like the view on our screen. Viewers who have already used Quicken 3.0 for Windows will move directly into the program where it left off last session. No matter what windows are open on your workspace, there's a simple way to clean up the area. Hold the Alt key down and press the W key to pull down the Windows menu. Once the Windows menu is open, press your A key to select the Close All command. Your screen may still look a little different than ours, but don't worry, you'll soon see how to manipulate the screen's appearance. Our plain vanilla Quicken window has four important components: the title bar, the workspace area, the menu bar, and the icon bar. These are standard for most Windows applications. Let's review each briefly so we can understand the environment in which Quicken 3.0 for Windows operates. First of all, the title bar tells us the name of the program, in this case, Quicken 3.0 for Windows, and also the name of the active data file. First-time users will not have a file name yet because we haven't created one. That's why the title bar only shows the program name, and also why the menu bar only has two commands. On the left side of the title bar is the Windows control menu. Suzanne, press your Alt and Space bar keys together to open it. The window control menu contains various commands to control the size and position of the Quicken application window on the Windows desktop. It also allows you to close Quicken or switch to another program using the Windows Task Swapper. The dark menu items are active options, while the grayed out items cannot be used at this time. Suzanne, press your Escape key to close the control menu. On the right-hand side of the title bar are the window sizing buttons. They are the mouse command equivalents to the sizing commands in the control menu. You should recognize these and those in the control menu from my Windows tape. If your Quicken window does not fill the computer screen, click on the Maximize button. That is the very top right button to give yourself a full screen view. Keyboard users, open the control menu and press the X key to maximize. The empty area of the screen is the work area, where various smaller windows will soon appear as we begin working with Quicken. The Quicken window is the program or application window. It appears on the Windows desktop. The various smaller windows that appear as we work in Quicken are documents or worksheets. The application window is sometimes called the parent and the worksheet the child. You must have an application program or parent open in order to have a document or child worksheet. There may be multiple children all running within the parent window. That is, you can have several types of worksheet documents open within the Quicken application. We've been looking at the outer or application window. We've already looked at its title bar and workspace area. Next up is the menu bar. The menu bar is the second line of the Quicken application window. Its pull-down menus will give us access to almost all of Quicken's commands. The only menus first-time users will see are the standard Windows File and Help menus. Viewers who have used Quicken before will have more menu commands listed, since your existing data file was automatically opened by Quicken. The menu bar menus and the options they contain are accessible by mouse and keyboard. We've used some of them already. Nevertheless, let's do a quick review of the most commonly used keyboard and mouse commands by exploring the menu bar menus. And we'll start by looking at basic mouse commands. The following mouse commands will be issued throughout the lesson. Point means to position the mouse pointer in a particular place in the window. Click means to press and release the left mouse button one time while pointing to a particular place in the window. Double click means to press and release the left mouse button twice in rapid succession. Suzanne, point and click on the File menu. This is called pulling down a menu. Once a menu is pulled down, you need only to click on the desired command within the menu to activate it. To pull down a menu with the keyboard, you press and hold the Alt key, then type the underscored letter in the menu name. Once the menu is open, you can use your arrow keys to highlight a command, then press the Enter key to activate it. Or simply type the underscored letter of the desired command name, this time without the Alt key. Suzanne, pull down the Help menu. The Help menu can be a real lifesaver when you're stuck in the middle of something. Notice the symbols at the right side of the menu. The F1 next to Quicken Help tells you that the F1 key is an alternative way to give this same command directly from the keyboard. The F1 key will quick select Quicken Help from anywhere in the program without using the mouse or menu. You will find similar quick key combinations on other menus as we work with Quicken. If you prefer to use keyboard commands, these combinations are helpful. The arrowhead next to Tutorials indicates a submenu for that item. Click on the arrow, Suzanne. Here's where you can find the Quicken tutorial we skipped earlier. The three little dots next to About Quicken are called ellipses. They indicate that there are additional choices to be made in connection with that command. Those choices are stored in on-screen dialog boxes, which are brought on screen when you select the command. Now let's look at Quicken Help, so select that command. Wow, here's a bonus. We get two windows of information. On the left are some instructions for using the Help windows, and on the right is a table of contents for Quicken Help. We'll cover many of these topics in this lesson. For example, Suzanne, click on the file folder called Quicken Menus and Icons, just under the Getting Started topic. Now click on Introduction. See how the topic popped up in the left-hand window? There's information about the mouse and keyboard commands we've been reviewing. After you finish this video lesson, you'll understand the help topics such as accounts and categories much better, and then you can easily use the help screens as a refresher. No doubt you'll come back here to explore further, but let's move on right now. Suzanne, click on the Close button within each window. The icon bar buttons are quick ways to issue the most common commands instead of using the menus. A good example is the Help icon at the far right. A click on that button will get exactly the same results as we just did by opening the Help menu and choosing Quicken Help. Viewers, your icon bar may have different buttons from those showing on our screen. It is one of Quicken's features that can be customized. For this lesson, I'll always give you the menu command as well as the icon button option. The other icons will make much more sense as we get into the process of creating a Quicken file and setting up accounts and categories. So let's do it! To use Quicken most effectively, you should understand the concepts used to organize our financial data. Three key terms are a data file, account, and category. In Quicken, a data file is a collection of related financial records, such as all your personal or family finances. Each data file contains one or more asset or liability account. For example, you can have a savings, credit card, or your homeowner's mortgage account all in one data file. For our lesson today, we'll have only one account in the data file, a single personal checking account. As you make transactions such as transfers, deposits, and checks on an account, Quicken lets you define the purpose of that transaction by tying it to a category or categories. You might think of these categories as various kinds of activities. Some general expense categories are groceries or auto expenses. Each data file can have several asset or liability accounts. You can add or delete categories and accounts as needed for your particular record keeping. Now that we understand these terms, let's put them to work. Since a new data file is the starting point, let's create one. Suzanne, pull down the File menu and select New. For you viewers who already have Quicken accounts on your system, this little reminder pops up to be sure you really want a new file. We do want a new file, so be sure that the item is marked, then click OK. Here's a dialog box that looks very much like the familiar Windows File Save As box.
Professor, how can we be saving a file? We haven't done anything yet.
Good question, Suzanne. We are going to create and save a file all at once. In many programs, you create a new file on screen and don't save it to disk until a little while later. But in Quicken, we must do both. We create the file and save the file right at the very beginning. Quicken actually creates several files within a data file. Each has a separate extension and helps store and sort financial information within the data file. But here we only need to name and save a single file. Quicken automatically creates the other files connected to it. This dialog box is designed to help us store our file in the correct place. Its areas display information about the three parts of a file storage address: the drive, the directory, and the file name. In the middle of the dialog box is the drives area. It allows you to select from the different drives on your system. Above the drives area is the directories area. In it, you select which directory to save your file. The current path is displayed at the top. Quicken is currently open. See how its directory folder is opened? Viewers, the directories you see here may differ from ours, but don't worry, we'll all end up in the right place. Usually the path and directories displayed here are determined by the last file accessed or saved. Suzanne, double-click on the C folder. Now look at the written out path and the directories displayed in the window. See the change? If we saved our file now, it would be saved in C drive's root directory. The root directory isn't a good location for this or any Quicken file. We need to select a new address for our file. Suzanne, click on the down arrow to the right of the drives box. You will see a list of the other drives available on this computer. Suzanne, we already decided to save our budget file to a floppy disk which goes into the A drive on this computer. We have a brand new disk already formatted for this lesson, so just pop that floppy disk into the A drive. Then click on A under Drives to give that new drive address. We have no subdirectories on our brand new floppy disk, so the directories box now just shows A:/ to indicate the root directory on that disk. Viewers, if you have subdirectories on your floppy disk, choose one of them to store your lesson file. Suzanne, move your pointer into the file name area and click just left of the asterisk. We'll call this data file VP Lesson. Type that name in and include the extension .qdt. Remember that your file name can only be 8 characters long because that's all DOS can recognize. And be very sure to keep the .qdt extension. That takes care of naming the new data file and putting it in the right storage location on the floppy disk. But there's one more thing to do before we leave this dialog box. Down in the lower right corner is a section called Predefined Categories, where the home and business boxes are both checked right now. These options will allow Quicken to automatically set up predefined categories for you if you want.
Professor, what is the difference between home and business categories?
Well, home categories include expenses like groceries or clothing. Some typical business categories would be advertising or office supplies. The check marks you see next to these options indicate these options are active. We only want the home categories, so we need to deactivate business categories. We do this by toggling the check mark off, and there are 2 ways of doing this. Suzanne, click inside the box next to business. A simple click can toggle the option on or off. You can also do this with the keyboard. Press your Alt then B keys together. The check mark is back and the business categories are active again. Press the Alt and B keys again to remove the check mark, therefore deactivating the option next to it. Be very sure to keep the check mark next to the Home category, or we won't get any categories at all. That's all we need to do in this dialog box, so click on OK or press your Enter key. Quicken has already taken us to the next step, choosing the account type. Here is a list of account types recognized by Quicken: bank, credit card, cash, asset, liability, and investment accounts. Any account we set up must fit into one of these types. The file we just created can contain any of these account types, and it will contain any accounts we might create while this file is open. The cue card at the top of the screen gives some helpful advice about how to use this window. The question mark button will open up a help window specifically for the activity you are working with. Viewers, if you do not have a cue card, don't worry. We'll show you how to set that option in just a moment. Suzanne, click on the question mark. And here's our friendly help window to explain about selecting the account type. Click on the close button so we can move on. The little notebook button opens up a second cue card that tells us exactly where to look in the documentation manuals if you want to read more about this process. As the cue card suggests, most people start with a bank account because it's pretty easy to understand and easy to see how it fits into Quicken. That's what we'll do too. Since the bank account button is already marked, just click on OK or press the Enter key. Quicken just automatically steps you through the process. Here's another dialog box where you can enter the exact information about your bank account. The cue card gives hints for each field, starting with the account name. It emphasizes that the Tab key is used to move to the entry boxes within the dialog box. The Enter key shouldn't be used until all the desired data is entered. This is true of most dialog boxes within Quicken. We'll just call this account Checking. So Suzanne, type that into the account name field and press the Tab key. When entering data, you may type using all caps or upper and lowercase letters. It doesn't affect the operation of the program. The next field is Balance. The cue card explains that we should enter the ending balance from our last bank statement. Our balance is $567.25. So everyone type in that amount. When you finish, press the Tab key. You'll need your own real bank statement when you set up your own accounts after you finish this lesson. Our last bank statement was from the end of March, so the as of date is 3/31/94. You could type that date into the space provided, but let me show you a special Quicken trick. Suzanne, click on the down arrow next to the space bar. And here's a calendar. Viewers, your calendar will probably show a different date from ours. The double arrows to the left and right of the month name allow you to move to other months. Suzanne, click on the left double arrow until you find March 1994. The right double arrows obviously allow us to move to future dates. When you have the March calendar, make sure the 31st is selected. Tab ahead to the next field, Description. The other fields hold required information, but this one is optional. You don't need to fill it in, but you might find it helpful, especially if you have several checking accounts. Let's call this one Money Bank. Type in MONY space BANC, just as you see on screen. Don't press the Tab key yet. We'll use this deliberate misspelling to see how to edit typing mistakes. The easiest correction is when you're still typing. Just use the backspace key. Suzanne, backspace once to remove the C in bank. And then type a K. Press the Tab key. The backspace key no longer works after you move out of a typing area. If you see an error afterwards, you'll need to move back to the typing area to correct it. Suzanne, position the mouse pointer between the N and the Y in money. Click the left mouse button to place the insertion mark. Now you just need to type the E to correct the spelling of money. The other letters move aside when the new letter is inserted. You can use this editing technique at any time to correct typing errors. When you're done, press the Tab key to move on to another field. That's all the information needed to set up this bank account, so select the OK button. What comes next? Entering checks. And here's a checkbook register so we can bring Quicken up to date on any checks or deposits since the last statement. Before we enter checks, however, we need to review some of the display preferences to be sure we all have the same view for this lesson. Suzanne, pull down the Edit menu and select Preferences at the bottom of the list. Now click on the Quick Fill button in the upper right corner of the Preferences window. In the dialog box that appears, make sure all options but the bottom one have check marks next to them. Remember, you might toggle the check marks on and off with either the keyboard or mouse. Once done, click OK or press the Enter key. Now press your Alt and I keys together to select the Preferences button for the icon bar button. We won't change any of the buttons, but we do want to be sure they are showing. We want the Show Icons and Show Text commands at the bottom of this window to be active, so make sure they have check marks next to them. Once you do, select the OK button. Now select the Cue Cards button on the bottom preference row. In the box that appears, you should see the message, "Currently all cue cards are on." If it doesn't appear, select the Cue Cards On option so we'll all see cue cards as we begin recording checks. Select OK when you finish. Next to the Cue Cards button is the Desktop button. Select it. Here we just want to be sure there's a check mark next to Save Desktop on Exit. Once done, or if it is already selected, click on OK or press Enter. Now your screen should look pretty much like ours, so select the Done button to close the Preferences window. There is one more step before we begin entering data into the register. Let's make the check register window larger. With the mouse, point to the very edge of the window until the pointer symbol changes into a two-sided arrow. Then click and drag the window frame up to fill up the space available. You may need to pull on both the top and bottom edges to get the largest view. Keyboard users use the Alt and hyphen keys to open the document control menu, then type S for size. Use the arrow keys to stretch the window. Press the Enter key when you have the size you want. At the bottom of the check register window for our bank account is a checkbox for One Line Display. Suzanne, toggle on the check mark for this box. With this option active, you can see more listings. However, it does limit the information you see on each line. Suzanne, toggle the check mark off so we are left with a two-line display. The button bar also has a check mark to turn it off or on. The button bar appears just under the title bar for this window with buttons for Insert, Delete, Copy, and so on. Viewers, the button bar option in your register window should have a check mark next to it. Now, Suzanne, I think we're ready to enter some checks. The check register we have on the screen looks very much like the one you probably use with your checkbook. Across the top are the column titles, date, number, payee, and so forth. A payment in this account is when you write a check and money goes out of the account. A deposit is when you put money into the account. And the balance is the resulting total. Fortunately, Quicken keeps the balance for us after we enter payments and deposits. The first line was automatically entered for us. It reflects the opening balance we gave in setting up the bank account. The date is March 31st, and it's called, appropriately enough, opening balance. It is recorded as a deposit to reflect this account's starting balance. Pretty straightforward so far, so let's move ahead and enter some checks. Just like your regular check register, each pair of rows is a separate entry, a check or a deposit. The date field automatically displays today's date. Our first check in this lesson was written on March 31st, 1994 to Goody Grocery for $37.65. Suzanne typed 3/31/94. This date field has a little down arrow that opens a calendar just like the one we saw earlier in the Balance Forward dialog box. You can enter the date using it or just by typing the date as we did this time. Once you've finished, press the Tab key to move to the next field, Number. The list that appears allows us to choose from several check and non-check transaction types. If you want to enter a non-check transaction, such as an ATM withdrawal or a deposit, you can leave the field blank or choose one of the descriptions from the list. We need a starting point, so type in 233 as the check number. Once it is entered, press your Tab key to move to the next field. This check was written to Goody Grocery, so type that into the Payee field. You don't have to put anything in the field, but of course it is useful information. Press the Tab key. The check to Goody Grocery was a payment of $37.65, so that amount goes into the payment field. You don't need to type $signs or commas, but it is necessary to type in the decimal. Quicken will add the zeros for you if you enter an even dollar amount. The down arrow in this field opens up a little calculator. We'll see how it works shortly. For now, press the Tab key again. Because we entered a payment, Quicken skipped over the deposit field and went back to the memo field. A memo is optional, but it does allow you to enter a little more explanation of the transaction if you like. We'll leave it blank on this check. So press the Tab key again to move on to the Category field. Category is a description of the type of transaction being done with the current entry. We are given a list of available transaction choices. Viewers, this list can be edited and may have been edited by someone else, so your choices may vary from ours. Our list is the default for first-time users. Most of you, even after working within Quicken, will have the same list. The category we want this payment tied to is groceries, and it must be an expense category. So scroll the list to find the grocery expense category. This is a pretty extensive list, so you'll have to scroll down a bit to find it. If this were a deposit, it would be an income category. Once found, click on groceries in the pull-down list. Doing so automatically places it into the category field. You could type the category into the field. However, there are a couple of reasons to use the list whenever possible. The first is that the list is always consistent. You don't end up with different categories like grocery, groceries, or food, all for the same type of expense. And secondly, the list helps you decide exactly what kind of expense or transaction it should be, just by seeing the list. You can add your own categories to the list and can also delete unnecessary items to make the list shorter. We'll look at those kinds of maintenance chores after a bit. That's all the information needed for this check. Now we need to record the transaction. At the bottom left of the register window are three buttons: Record, Restore, and Splits. Press the Tab key, Suzanne. Now there should be a dotted line around the word Record. Press the Enter key or click on the Record button. Did you hear the disk drive as the new entry was written onto the disk file? Each transaction is saved automatically to disk each time you select Record. Something else happened on the screen. We have an updated balance of $529.60. That reflects the check just entered.
Professor, what's that little X next to the opening balance?
Since that's the bank statement balance, it has an X to show that it's cleared the bank, which is of course true of the statement balance. Next month, we'll mark the checks and deposits that have cleared in order to get a new reconciled balance. But we have some work to do before then. Let's enter another check into the register. This one was written to Oil Be Changed for that 3,000-mile oil change. The last date used in Quicken is automatically selected for us in the Date field. Our second check was also written on March 31st, 1994. So press Tab to accept the date and to move on to the Number field. This time in the Number field, we can take advantage of the list. Click on the next check number listing, and Quicken fills in the next sequential check number of 234. Press Tab to move into the Payee field. The Payee field now offers a drop-down list. Quicken enters new payees or deposits after the initial beginning balance into this list as each new transaction is recorded. Selecting one of these listings quickly enters that listing into the Payee field. That entry isn't appropriate for our next transaction, so we must type in the payee, Oil Be Changed. Type in Oil-B-Changed. Press Tab after you finish typing. Now enter $29.95 as the amount of the oil change payment. Once done, press the Tab key. Let's use the Memo field to help remind us of the mileage at the time of this oil change. Enter 50,650, then press Tab. The category for this expense is Auto. Type an A. By pressing your A key, Quicken's Quick Fill option seeks the first expense entry that starts with an A, which is Auto. Let's tie this transaction to a more specific category, Suzanne. Press your down arrow until the Auto subcategory Service is highlighted. Press Enter to write this category into the field. Then enter again to record this check and update the balance. You can also click on the Record button or press your Alt and C keys together to record the transaction. There is a running balance in the right-hand column of the register, and also an ending balance report at the bottom of the screen. They are both the same, of course. Now, before we add any new transactions, let's take a few moments to fine-tune the screen display and investigate a few more of the options available in Quicken. To do this, we'll go back to the Preferences window. This time, however, let's click on the Prefs icon at the right side of the icon bar to open it. If you do not have a Prefs icon, pull down the Edit menu and select Preferences like we did last time. Once the Preference window is open, click on the Cue Cards button. Now that we know how they work, let's turn them off so they don't clutter up the screen. Click on the Cue Cards Off button or press Alt-F to turn them off, then click on OK. Remember, you can always bring them back on screen by going through Preferences. As you work in Quicken, you'll develop your own screen and option preferences. Most are pretty clear choices. Remember, you can access preferences through the Edit menu or by clicking on the Prefs icon. Click on Done in the Preferences dialog box to close it. While we're making changes to displays, let's take a look at the lengthy category list so we see how to pare it down. Suzanne, press your Alt and L keys together to pull down the Lists menu. Once open, press your C key to choose Category and Transfer. This opens a window containing the current list of categories. The Category List button on the icon bar also opens this window. Does this look familiar, Suzanne?
Yes, it looks like the same one in the check register.
You're right. Now let's edit this list. The buttons at the bottom of this window help us do that. We'll start with the Delete button. Be sure this Windows scroll bar box is at the top. The first category in the list should be Bonus. It's a keeper. But the next one, CPP, that's Canadian Pension Plan, is not one we'll be expecting to use, so let's delete it. Press the down arrow key or click on CPP to select it. Then click on the Delete button. The warning box gives us a chance to avoid an accident. OK is the proper response here, so click on the OK button. And that's all there is to it. You may want to edit the list when you set up your own checking account, choosing the categories that will work best for you. You may also discover that you'll need to add categories, so let's see how that's done while we're here. You don't need to worry about the location of the cursor in the list, since your new category will automatically sort itself into the alphabetical order. Click on the button labeled New so we are given the Setup category window. Let's make a subcategory under Entertainment to keep track of money spent on sports tickets and equipment. Suzanne, type Sports in the name field. When you finish, press the Tab key. Now type Tickets and Equipment into the description box just like it shows on the screen. This is an expense type of category, so be sure that option is selected. The circle next to it will be dark if it is. We want to make a subcategory, so select that button. Before Quicken can create a new subcategory, it must be told under which category the subcategory will appear. Suzanne, click on the down arrow next to the subcategory Of box. We are now given a list of Quicken's main categories. Scroll down the list until you find Entertainment. Click on it to place it into the Edit box. Home entertainment is not a tax-related expense, so be sure that item isn't selected. Everything is set, so click on OK to add this category to the list. Now, let's scroll down this list so we can see the new entry. There it is. It's pretty easy to add or delete categories, and I'm sure you'll want to spend time in this area as you set up your own accounts. But it's time for us to move on with the lesson. Use the control menu on the title bar and select Close to clear this window. Well, after that little detour, are you ready to spend some money, Suzanne?
You bet, Professor.
Our next check is another written to Goody Grocery. It was written on April 1st, 1994. Let's use the calendar to make the change, so click on the down arrow to open it. Click on the right pointing arrows to the right of the month to move ahead to April. The first is already selected for us, so press the tab to move on to the number field. Suzanne, press your N key to choose Next Check Number from the list. Excluding the first two options, pressing the first character of a choice automatically selects it. Press Tab to accept the choice and move on to the Payee field. Since this check was written to Goody Grocery, we can choose them from the Payee list. Type G and press the Tab key. If you have several payees that start with the same letter, just keep typing until Quicken has enough letters to choose the correct entry. Once it is highlighted, press the Tab key. In the payment column, Quicken remembered the amount of the last Goody Grocery check and is suggesting that figure. However, this check was written for $55.19, so you'll have to type in the correct amount. Then press the Tab key. You can see that Quicken also remembered the category for the last grocery check, so that area is also filled in. We don't need a memo for groceries, so we have all the information for this transaction. Suzanne, click on the Record button or press the Enter key. We've already seen how to enter basic transactions into the register. Now let's enter a few more checks so we see how Quicken handles more complicated transactions. Specifically, those needed to be split or placed into various categories. Let's enter a check which pays a charge card bill. This bill has 4 separate charged items that can be placed into 3 different categories. We'll also categorize the interest changed by the credit card company. Enter April 10th into the date field, then press the Tab key. At the number field, press your N key to select Next Check Number, then press Tab again. Now type in MasterCard as the payee. When you finish, press the Tab key again. Suzanne, click on the Splits button. This opens a new window where we can specify the categories and breakdown of expenses of a single payment. Our first charge was made to General Hardware for house paint. This is a home repair item. Press your H key, Suzanne. Quick Fill should find and highlight the home repair category. Once it is found, press your Tab key and enter paint as a memo for this transaction. Tab again and enter $16.50 into the amount field. When you finish, press Tab again to enter our second split of this payment. The next 2 charges can be categorized together. Pull down the category listing, then scroll the list to find and select the clothing category. After selecting it, press your Tab key twice. We have a couple of clothing items on the credit card bill, so it's time to break out Quicken's built-in calculator to help us tally those. Just click on the down arrow, and there it is. Now type $22.95, then click on the plus key. Then type in $95. Now click on the equal sign. That gives us $117.95 as clothing expense. You can use the calculator with mouse-only commands or keyboard-only commands, or as we did, a combination of both. Once you select the drop-down menu, it automatically appears so you can use it again for the next entry. We charge tickets to a ball game using this card, so that is our next charge to be categorized. Scroll the list to find our newly created sport tickets and equipment subcategory. After selecting it, tab twice to the amount field and enter $119. Then press Tab. And now for that pesky finance charge. It is categorized under Interest Expense. Press your I key. Quick Fill finds the first category starting with I. It is interest, but it's interest income. Scroll the list to find Interest Expense, then select it. Now tab twice and enter $5.17 for the interest expense. Yikes, so that's where all the money goes. Okay, Suzanne, that's it for the credit card statement this month. Click OK to close the splits window. While we were entering the expenses, Quicken added up the total for us. Now it wants to know if the $258.62 is a payment or deposit. It is a payment. That option is selected, so click OK. Now click on Record to save the transaction to disk. Quicken recorded only the total on the check register. The detailed breakout to separate categories is saved in the splits window. Doing transaction splits is a fairly complicated process, so let's try another. This time we'll break down a paycheck into actual take-home pay and categorize all those deductions that go directly to Uncle Sam. This paycheck was deposited April 1st, 1994. Type the date in or use the calendar to enter it. When you finish, press your Tab key again. Now select Deposit from the number field list. Press Tab. Type in Paycheck into the Payee field. Press your Tab key. We told Quicken that this is a deposit, so it automatically selected the correct field. And in the deposit field, enter $1,053.75 to indicate our net pay. When you finish, press the Tab key twice. We'll leave the memo field empty. We all know that our paycheck is never as big as our salary because taxes must be withheld by the employers. Let's see how Quicken helps keep track of the information you'll need at tax time. Click on the Splits button at the bottom of the screen, and a new window is opened where we can capture all the details on the pay stub. The first category we want is salary. Press your S key so QuickFill can find the salary category for us. Once it is selected, press Tab twice to move to the amount area. The net amount of our check is suggested, but the gross salary was $1,500, so type that amount in and press Tab. The negative $446.25 displayed here indicates the difference between gross and net pay. The deductions from our paycheck are in the form of standard tax deductions. Let's break down the lump sum into specific taxes. Press your T key to find tax in the expense section, then arrow down to Fed. That's the federal income tax. Now tab twice. This is a deduction, so type a minus sign and then $300. Press Tab. The next tax is Medicare, so click on it to place it into the category area, then tab twice. Now enter a negative $21.75 as the Medicare expense. Don't forget to type the decimal here. Press Tab and select Social Security under the tax category. Tab twice and enter minus $93 for Social Security tax. Press Tab and select State Tax as the final tax deduction. Tab twice. This last tax amount is exactly $31.50. That amount is already displayed for us by Quicken. As each split entry was entered, Quicken automatically subtracted that amount from the $446.25 difference in gross and net pay. The splits total is $1,053.75, which matches the actual paycheck deposit, and the remainder is zero. Click OK to complete the splits entry and return to the check register. And then click Record to add this deposit to the balance. A Quicken tip may appear on screen. If it does, read it, then click on OK to clear it. That helps the balance, doesn't it? And look, Suzanne, since the date on this deposit is earlier than the MasterCard payment, the paycheck moved up in the list to stay in date order. Now that we have looked at Quicken's version of the conventional checkbook register, let's look at how it makes transactions that go into the register a little easier to do. All those monthly checks that you write out by hand each month can now be handled by Quicken. It allows you to print your own checks, reminds you when bills are due, and it's even possible to pay bills electronically with Quicken without ever using a paper check. Electronic bill paying requires a modem and a different setup that's beyond the scope of this lesson. So we'll concentrate on printing checks. We have two regular monthly items, the rent and car payments. Suzanne, click on the icon with a little check and pen on it, or open the Activities menu and select Write Checks. The window presents a standard check form with familiar blanks to be filled, so let's write the rent check. It is made to home base for $400 a month. The date is April 15th. The arrow pulls down the calendar just like it does in the check register, or you can type it in. Then tab to the next field. Now enter home base as the payee. When you finish, press the Tab key and enter $400 into the amount area. Press the Tab key and Quicken writes out the amount for you. The checks, which can be ordered from Intuit, the people who created Quicken, have a space for an address so you could mail them in a window envelope if you like. Our rent goes to 9876 Happy Landing, so type that address in. Then tab to the next line and enter My Town, CO 12345. When you finish, tab on through the rest of the address block. Pass the memo space until you get to the category area. Once there, pull down the category list and select Housing. Now click on the Record button. Quicken records that check and gives us another blank check to write.
Professor, it didn't ask me for the check number. How will it know which number to print?
Good question, Suzanne. Since we will have the computer print the checks, the actual check number will be determined at the time of printing. We'll see that in a moment. Meanwhile, you might still handwrite other checks and record them in the register as we did earlier. Notice at the bottom of the screen, Suzanne, is a new line, checks to print, with a total of the rent check, $400. That amount also has been subtracted from the ending balance, so we know where we stand and don't accidentally spend the same money twice. Let's write one more check here for the car payment and then see how to do some printing. Once again, enter April 15th as the date of the check, then press tab. Enter Car Finance Company as the payee, then tab, and enter $325 for the payment. Then press tab. The address is 123 Main Street, My Town, CO 12346. Remember to press the tab key after entering the first line. When you finish, tab through to the category area. This payment is repaying an auto loan, so select that category from the list. Now click on Record. Now let's see how to print these new checks. Click on the Print button, Suzanne, or pull down the File menu and select Print Checks. It would take too much time to explain printer setup and check alignment details in this lesson. There are just too many options to contend with. However, we will step through the printing process so you'll know what to do. Remember, you can order pre-made check blanks from Intuit. They have a wide variety of check forms in which to choose from. One should work with your printer. The dialog box that appears asks what check number do we want to start with. We'll use the check number 1001 offered here. Tab to the next section, Suzanne. The options in this area allow us to choose which checks to print. Everyone, make sure the All Checks button is selected. The message at the top of this dialog box tells us there are 2 checks to print for a total of $725 in expenditures. If we had entered an entire month's worth of checks in advance, we could ask Quicken to print checks written through a specific date. Quicken allows us to be even more selective in our print choice. Click on the selected check button, Suzanne, then click on the Choose button. Here are both checks. To the far right of each check is the word Print, which simply enough means they are ready to print. If you decide not to print a check, you must toggle the print message off. Suzanne, click on Car Finance to select it. Then click on the Mark button located in the lower left of this dialog box. The print message disappeared. Therefore, Quicken won't print that check. This is a handy little feature to have, especially if you no longer need to pay a particular expense. We still need to pay this expense, so click on the Mark button again to toggle the print message back on. Once done, click on the OK button to close this selection window. Everything is set in this dialog box, so click on the Print button. We are given yet another dialog box to fine-tune the printing process. It allows us to do a test print to see if the checks will print out properly. It also allows us to change the print alignment of our checks just in case they do print out incorrectly on the pre-made check forms. We have only 2 checks to print, so select the To button in the Checks on First Page area. Once selected, click on the Print button. And off to the printer they go. After your checks print, Quicken asks you if your checks came out okay. If your checks did, click on OK. If not, type in the number of the first incorrectly printed check, then click on OK. If you still experience problems, go back to the Print Checks box and try to realign the check forms. Suzanne, click on the Check Register's title bar to make that window active. Now look at the bottom of the register window. The checks we just wrote were automatically entered into the register for us. Well, Suzanne, that's only a few entries. I'm sure our viewers' budgets include many more items, but we've seen how Quicken can handle several different situations and help keep the checkbook balanced. You now have more than enough basics to start keeping your own checkbook records. Before you do, however, let's look at one more area of keeping an accurate checkbook: reconciling. First, we need to clean up the screen display a little. Do you remember the shortcut that I showed you at the beginning of the lesson, Suzanne? Pull down the window menu and select Close All Windows. Now, even though the screen looks empty, our VP lesson file is still open. See the title bar? Suzanne, click on the Reconcile button on the icon bar or open the Activities menu and select Reconcile. The bank opening balance is already entered into this dialog box from our last statement. We'll use this month's bank statement to see which checks have cleared, which deposits have been recorded, and how much interest income we may have coming to us, and how much the bank has charged us for its services. The new bank statement displays $763.35 as this month's ending balance. Enter that amount into the ending balance area within the reconciling dialog box. Once that is done, tab down to Service Charge and enter $10. Press Tab again. Then enter April 30th as the date of this statement. Press Tab again. The category for a service charge is Bank Charge. By typing a B and an A, Quick Fill should enter Bank Charge for us. If it doesn't, scroll the category list to find it. The statement reports that we earned a little interest. Tab over to Interest and enter $2.14. When you finish, press Tab again and enter April 30th, 1994. The category for that interest would be Interest Income. Press Tab, type I to select Interest Income. Make sure you select Interest Income, not Expense. Check your entries against those on the screen. If everything matches, click on OK. Now Quicken gives us a list of all our payments and deposits since the last statement. The check marks next to the service charge and interest show that they've already been cleared since we entered them from the bank statement. We just need to mark all the rest of the items that show up on the statement to tell Quicken that they have cleared. Remember that it's possible to have checks or deposits on your register that have not yet cleared the bank. Quicken will figure out whether to add or subtract them. We just need to mark the stuff that shows up on the bank statement. And that's as simple as clicking on an entry. During the month, both Goody grocery checks cleared the bank, so click on each of those to mark them, Suzanne. The Oil Be Changed, Home Base, and Car Finance checks also cleared, so mark them too. Only the MasterCard check is not checked off. We sent it out, but it hasn't reached the bank yet. On the deposit side, the paycheck deposit shows up on the statement, so mark it too. That takes care of all the items in the statement. However, we do have a problem. There's a $2 difference between our numbers and the bank's. The bank statement says our deposits total $1,055.89, and that matches the total on the screen, so that must be okay. But the bank statement shows checks totaling $859.79, while our screen shows $857.79, a difference of $2. Let's take a closer look at our check entries. The first two checks entries matched up well, but the third to Goody Grocery doesn't. The bank paid the check at $57.19. Our register entry for the same check is $55.19. We need to correct that entry to finish our reconciliation. It's a small data entry error and easily corrected. Click on Goody to select it and unmark the entry. Then click the Edit button. Once the check register is back on the screen, tab over to the Payments column for check number 235. Now enter $57.19 as the payment for the second Goody grocery check. When you finish, click on Record to enter the changes. Suzanne, pull down the window menu and select number 1, Reconcile Bank Account. Now you can mark the Goody grocery check again. And now the difference is 0. Click Done, and Quicken updates the checkbook, putting X's next to the cleared items and writing the entries for service charge and interest. Now isn't that nice? When was the last time you received congratulations for balancing your bank account? Since everything came out okay, you can click No for the reconciliation report. Congratulations, Suzanne. You finished your Quicken lesson, and I'll bet you're ready to go to work on your own checkbook. Let's close Quicken as a final step and then quickly review how you can set up your own file. Suzanne, pull down the File menu and select Exit. We don't have to remember to save the file since each transaction is saved automatically when you record it. Now let's see what happens when you restart Quicken next time. Suzanne, double-click the Quicken program icon again. Since we saved the work from our session on a floppy disk, Quicken asks you for the data disk in A drive even though we know it's already there. When you are ready to set up your own file, choose Cancel here, and Quicken will go back to the introductory screen that we saw just after installation. First-time users can take advantage of that feature to set up your own files after this lesson is complete. Viewers with existing files will need to use the File Open command to reopen the files that were already created. They will probably be on the same drive as your Quicken folder. Good luck and best wishes for a successful financial future, Suzanne.
Thanks, Professor. You make learning fun.
Thank you, Suzanne, and remember, there's always so much you can learn from me, the Video Professor.